Japan by River Cruise is made possible by your donations and subscriptions at japanbyrivercruise.com and the generosity of our corporate sponsors.
In January 2020, Australia was on fire. Brexit finally happened. Donald Trump had his impeachment trial, and a Ukraine International Airlines passenger flight got shot down during a war. Turkey had a devastating earthquake. Jakarta had unprecedented flooding that caused dozens of deaths. Kobe Bryant and his daughter tragically died in a helicopter crash, and there was an actual plague of locusts in Kenya. Then February happened, then March, and we're still not even halfway through the year. You've likely accepted that this horrible year is never going to end. So, shouldn't your wardrobe reflect that? Well, it can, with Forever 2020. All of our clothing has built-in virus-filtering face masks, contained our patented easy white material for writing and rewriting protest slogans on the go, and combines both heat tech and cool tech technology, since climate change has meant that the weather now changes hourly, not daily. All of our fashionable shirts come with optional straitjacket arms to keep you from browsing on your phone. A cool body cam with one-click upload to both TikTok and the Independent Police Complaints Commission. And of course, everything we make is water resistant, so you don't ruin it by weeping. Because even though the world is ending, the year never will. Forever 2020.
And welcome back to Japan by River Cruise. I'm Bobby Judo.
And I'm Ollie Horn.
And joining us this week is Greg Lane, co-founder of and writer at Tokyo Cheapo and official spokesperson for the LCC Tonegawa Bring Your Own Boat River Cruise in Chiba. Greg, thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
On this week's show, a new Harry Potter attraction is coming to Tokyo. Well, if you're planning a theme park while there's still no corona vaccine available, it's probably good that your target is people who want to live in a fantasy land. And as more and more stores are implementing self-checkout systems, some retail locations think that the technology has advanced far enough that they can go completely unmanned. So, get ready to have a robot tell you that your Nihongo is ojozu. Plus, Ollie's got your weekly River Cruise recommendation. Ollie?
Yes, well, since all Japanese river cruises are suspended, this week's River Cruise is our first ever international River Cruise recommendation. This time from my hometown of Bristol in the UK. The one-off sailing of the Bandwagon glass-bottom boat will travel down the River Avon towards the harbour side, circling the now underwater statue of Edward Colston. The cruise was put on to accommodate the handful of Colston's new fans who were enraged that the statue was torn down in protest, since statues are the best way to educate about figures of historical importance. But sadly, and this is just rotten timing, they happened to become fans after his statue was toppled in the water.
And later in the show, we'll be taking calls from the owners of some of Tokyo's high-end luxury river cruise liners who blame Greg for putting them out of business. But first, Soap Talk.
Greg, your website helps tourists come to Japan. There are no tourists in Japan. What are you doing with yourself?
I'm growing a lot of vegetables and strawberries and things.
Oh, nice.
But I mean, we do have a kind of a fair number of locals who look at the site as well. So,
oh, really?
Foreigners who live in Japan. So I mean, the traffic on the site has dropped by about 90%. So
wow, really? And
yeah.
Presumably as well, if your revenue comes from kind of affiliate links and advertising, advertisers are spending less on their adverts too, right? Because they have
nothing. It's zero. It's pretty bad.
But you're confident it's going to pick up, right?
Our business fundamentally is okay, I think. But as long as there's no tourists, there's no revenue. So, it's kind of we have kind of two main sources of traffic. One is the inbound tourist stuff, and the other one is events.
Right.
So,
and both are defunct.
Completely, yeah. Even Fuji Rock got announced this week. That's been cancelled.
Sunset Live 2 has been postponed, hasn't it?
Sunset Live has been cancelled. I'm wearing a Sunset Live t-shirt right now. The designer...
This is a podcast? That's irrelevant.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Bobby, are you still back in the TV studio?
Yes, I did Asades this morning, and I'm in a separate room from the main studio. And because of a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff and like the racial sensitivity issues on the news in every country in the world these days, I found that I was being a little bit hypersensitive to what I thought was racism. and I overcorrected a mistake, or what I thought was a mistake on Asadesk this morning. They were doing this story about all these celebrities and famous people sending out messages to the graduating class of 2020. And because I'm in a separate studio, I didn't get the live feed from the show until just a couple minutes before my segment was supposed to start. And they were showing clips as they were winding down the segment. And then there was a clip of Barack Obama and a clip of Condoleezza Rice and a clip of like the Korean pop singers from BTS. And they were narrating it, and they said, Obama Zen Daitorio Fusai, which means former President Obama and wife. And I immediately ran from my room into the next studio to be like, Condoleezza Rice is not his wife. You can't just see a black woman and be like, Obama and his wife. They weren't even in the same video screen.
And also, his children are not that good at dancers, and I don't think they sing. I don't think they sing K-pop.
Doesn't have Korean kids. But as soon as I said it, apparently they were like, oh no, in the main news story, it showed a message from her as well, and that's what we were referring to. We weren't talking about Condoleezza Rice. We're not that bad. But in my defense, my experience with this show and its knowledge of black famous people, when the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, they were showing all these clips of people and fans reacting, and they showed this clip of LeBron James celebrating. And after the clip was over, a person in the studio went, that black guy looked like Bob Sapp.
Oh, dear.
Bob Sapp is like a wrestler who was a famous celebrity in Japan. Looks nothing like LeBron James, by the way.
Absolutely not.
Bobby, no mail this week, so shall we jump into the news? Bobby Judah, what's in the news this week?
Great news for Harry Potter fans. There is a new Harry Potter park scheduled to replace Tokyo's Toshima-en in a redevelopment plan. I'm not familiar with Toshima-en. Greg, have you been there? Do you know what it is?
I haven't been there recently, but when I went there about 10 years ago, it was looking pretty tired, so it's probably well due for a replacement, I'd say.
Is it a park or a theme park? Or
It's a theme park. They've got like a wave pool. They've got like a indoor skating rink. They've got like a Ferris wheel, that kind of stuff.
Doesn't USJ already have like a Wizarding World of Harry Potter theme attraction?
I think they do.
In Osaka, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm interested to know with this this theme park about the cast, because I'm wondering if they're gonna kind of make a Japanese version of all the characters, or if they'll kind of hire a bunch of white people to play the different characters.
Well, actually, USJ is a huge employer of white people.
Yeah.
And if you go out partying on Osaka, you'll often bump into them, and they're really fun because they're living the dream, right? Like if you're a dancer, you get put on a really good contract. They pay you fairly well, and you get to kind of dick around. It must be so fun. It must be so fun just being waved at. Bobby, isn't that your ideal job?
Yes, it'd be fantastic.
You turn up every day, you just walk down the street in some outfit, and people are just elated, ecstatic.
I think it would have been, if I could
just to see you
dance or sing or act, I think it would have been a fantastic way to spend my 20s. I know people who are like cast members at Disneyland playing the princesses or the princes, or cast members at Universal Studios Japan. Anybody who's not in a giant plush costume, I think has got a pretty sweet deal.
You could be a prince.
I could have, maybe. Once upon a dream, I might have been. But I looked at this article. It's hilarious to me. I was like, oh, a Harry Potter theme park. Let me see what this is about. And I opened up this page, and it's 50% about disaster prevention and evacuation. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Which actually made me think that isn't there a theme park in Japan for Japanese kids to learn about disaster prevention? Like there's a theme park where kids can play police officers and play firemen.
And women.
Yeah. What's that called? Kidzania, that's the one.
Yeah, I don't think it's uniquely Japanese, and it's more about careers. You can be in like the emergency services and rescue services.
Yeah, they have
And in America, they have one where they just give you a baseball bat and you can beat the shit out of each other.
So this theme park, and the way the article presents it is so funny. It's going to be similar to the one that they have in London, the indoor Harry Potter studio tour facility, and it talks about props used in Harry Potter film shoots. And it says the plan for the redevelopment includes creating an environment with water features and greenery that is, quote, bustling with lots of people, which is just a great way to phrase that for this time. And then immediately the next sentence is they will also cooperate to secure a regional disaster evacuation area with a park on the west side to accommodate people who are unable to return home if a disaster occurs. So it's like they are aware that somehow this is going to create a humanitarian crisis.
Do you know what I think it might be? I think it might be that they're worried that they might be too magical, and one of the ones in the gift shop might actually have magical powers. they're just making sure that if accidentally someone does say Expelliarmus, or cause a tsunami and something bad actually happens, that they're covered.
I think it has more to do with the idea that this is a large-scale representation of what everybody is going through right now, and that they all want to get back to normal and get back to business and get back to earning money, but they can't bring in any money for anything unless they make it look like it has something to do to help out with the current disastrous state of the world.
Right.
It is in the middle of the nowhere. So like I think back in 2011 with the big earthquake, and like it hit Disney pretty hard. And at the time they had all sorts of kind of liquefaction with like water coming up through the ground and like thousands of people stuck at the parks.
Yeah, it's funny the idea that they'd have to take that into account now just to talk about making plans to release a theme park, to the point where the article is equally focused on what they're doing for disaster prevention. And
right.
I clicked it because I wanted to find out what Harry Potter stuff it's going to have, and instead it's like, oh, we're going to have that magic train platform door that people disappear into, but it will also be an actual door that leads to a nuclear fallout bunker. So, will it have butterbeer? Like, it'll have throat swabs.
Actually, that reminds me a little bit of another kind of theme park down Yokohama way. It's got its own train line to get there, and it's actually built around a former Japanese Imperial Army base. Yeah. And it's got massive like tunnels and earthworks and places where they served, they stored all the ammunition and things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that could be a historical lesson and survival option if need be.
Disneyland kind of is a bit post-apocalyptic, right? Like if you break it down, they're like people are contractually obliged to be happy every day in the context of actual human-sized rodents wandering around the streets.
Well, thinking about the future of theme parks and things like that and how they have to incorporate all these kind of disaster preparedness and this atarashi seikatsu yoshiki, these new styles and modes of living daily life, there was the article that Forbes put out about Disneyland going contactless, which looked like it was something that they were already kind of releasing and rolling out before the whole COVID-19 thing happened.
Yes. Well, I quite liked the headline about Disneyland going contactless because it reminded me of something I read about last year. Because my brother is absolutely obsessed with Disney, right? He's an otherwise fairly normal guy, but he's like properly into Disney.
Is your brother a 40-year-old Japanese woman?
No, he's not. But he would dearly love to go to Disneyland Tokyo. But he sent me an article about how Disney characters are trained to not to make sure their hands are visible in photographs, because after the Me Too movement, they wanted to be extra careful.
Yeah.
That, like Goofy wouldn't be appearing in a dock, with someone accusing him of copping a feel with his 3 jumbo fingers.
They use the Keanu Reeves technique, right? They're taking the pictures, but their hands are always floating over the shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. And so Disney, in that respect, was already contactless.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's obviously like Japan's so funny, right? Because Japan had technology such as the Passmo cards, like well before many other countries, but then was really, really late to NFC contactless payments on phones, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I just have a feeling that Japan is going to do what it always does and just kind of hold out and then wait for some leapfrog moment where all of a sudden, we're not even buying things anymore. It like automatically appears in our mouths.
Ollie, I think you might have been missing out on cashless, the big cashless campaign they've had here for the last 6 months or so.
Well, I have been. I've been out of the country.
With the awesome, the slogan is have a nice cashless.
That's not really a
And-
slogan. That's just what people have said to each other for decades. That's normally how I'll finish a nice chit chat. Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Have a nice cashless. Oh, you too, man. These are of course not accessible to tourists, are they, Greg?
No. That's the thing. Like Japan has its kind of complete separate ecosystem. Like even the touchless credit cards. There's a separate system for Japan. So but I think there are some places that are introducing the the Visa touchless. It looks like a little kind of like a Wi-Fi sign.
Yeah.
There are places that I think would give cash back or some sort of like points or reward system if you use that Visa cashless, touch and go. But I think Ollie's point was more about the idea that Japan's adoption of technology goes in these weird leaps where they skip some things. Like they had the IC cards for transport, which you could apply that same technology to cashless for a long time. And it just in the last, year, 6 months, they're starting to push. Cashless purchasing.
I remember thinking it was cool that in 2009 I could buy a card which I would tap against a vending machine and then a drink would plop out. And then I visited again in 2014 thinking this is absolutely absurd that I'm handing over a bit of paper and someone's grabbing that paper with two hands and handing it back to me. Although I guess that's actually part of the experience for a tourist, isn't it? Like when you hand over your money and they take it in that very typically Japanese way with two hands, and then hand you back the change.
Yeah,
it would be a shame to see that go. It'd be nice if as I'm paying cashless on my mobile phone, I hand over my mobile phone with two hands, and they take my mobile phone with two hands. They tap it on my behalf, turn it around, take a selfie with me as a memento, and then hand the mobile phone back with two hands.
Actually, that's something I really I have a pet hate about that. Those kind of ticketless things on the cell phone where you have a QR code.
Yeah.
And you actually have to hand over your phone to the person so they can actually scan it.
Manhandle your phone and touch it all up.
I hate that. Yeah.
What's on your phone, Greg?
I had the exact same experience the other day at a convenience store, except it wasn't a phone, it was a can of beer. And I was like just showing them the barcode and was like, just scan the barcode. And I didn't want to let them take it out of my hand, so they just ended up touching it while it was in my hand. So you're just kind of holding hands around a beer can.
But we are going to think this is absurd, isn't it? That in order for us to get products, someone has to hand it to us. Like anything that we ever consume for a very, very brief moment has to be passed to another human and then passed straight back to us.
Well, we talked about this a little bit with Rochelle, just in terms of the idea that the pandemic is forcing Japan to adopt all these technologies or discard all of these kind of defunct technologies like the Incan, which, they're doing it with different degrees of success. But our next major news story that we want to look at this week is this one about unmanned convenience stores. JR East has announced that they're going to open 100 unmanned convenience stores. They're accelerating their plans, and this is again largely due to the pandemic, wanting to introduce a contactless way for people to get stuff from convenience stores. But you could also kind of see this as a quicker step down the road to greater unemployment and more exploitative business practice.
Yes, you can be sure that if a business is saving money on staff costs, they're not going to be handing those savings to the other staff, are they?
No. They do have a couple of unmanned convenience stores open already, don't they?
I haven't actually seen an unmanned convenience store. I've seen plenty of what they call self-regi.
Yeah.
Where you basically just scan your own items. But I haven't seen a completely unmanned one yet.
It looks like there's one open in Takanawa Gateway Station.
Okay.
That started operating in March, so very timely.
These have existed in America for a while with Amazon, right? I think it's called Amazon Go.
Yeah.
There's one in San Francisco. Yeah. And it does feel like you're shoplifting because you can just walk in, take a product, put it in your pocket, and leave.
Yeah, I don't think the Japanese ones are going to be that sophisticated. Even the self-regi, the self-checkout thing, it's really, really basic. They've had it for years in New Zealand, and they have all these kind of safety and security kind of features. Yeah. So the idea is you put your bag on one side and then you transfer it to the other side and it has to weigh the same. And if it doesn't weigh the same, then you're obviously a shoplifter and a thief. Whereas in Japan, they don't it's basically just the same equipment that the person behind the counter is using. But
but with limited access to functions. One thing that whenever I go shopping to buy stuff for like a TV shoot, I have to get a business receipt, and there's no option to print out a business receipt. You have to
Right.
call a clerk to come over. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody use the self-regi without having to ask a clerk to come over and help them either add a bag purchase or print out something or take something off. It seems like even though it's supposed to be self, you're ending up involving somebody who works at the store anyway.
My experience of using these in the UK is that the staff are nominally there to check that you're not being sneaky.
Yeah.
But they've got maybe 8 or 10 of these under their purview. And so if you call them over because it says there's been an unexpected item in the bagging area or something's wrong, all they will do is take their barcode, scan, tap a button and go, as you were. As, your basket is absolutely brimming with rotisserie chickens, as the display says that you just bought one single chewing gum.
I wonder how this is going to affect the age verification system for buying alcohol at the convenience store. It's one of my favorite things about it, that age verification button for buying beer, or as I like to call it, the would you like to buy a beer button. It's just this button that pops up that says, would you like to buy this beer? And you just push yes. Like, there's not even an option for, no, I made a mistake. It's just, do you want the beer? Yes.
And a child could still touch that. And as far as they're concerned, their thorough due diligence has been completed.
Well, that's what I've always said is that in America, you have to show ID. And if you go in and you don't have ID, the clerk is like, hey, kid, get out of here. And in Japan, the system is you have to push the button. And if you don't push the button, the clerk is like, hey, kid, you got to push that button.
Or worse, if you're a foreigner, they reach around and push it for you.
Yeah,
They presume that
I'll get that for you.
Presume that you can't read it.
And then they've touched the same screen you were supposed to touch, which defeats the whole purpose of contactless shopping.
Do you know about that thing called TASPO?
TASPO.
I'm not a smoker, but it's a thing for people who it's like
That's the
tobacco something. It's like an age verification card or something, so you can buy your smokes from a vending machine.
Are they also the ones that totally botched the Fukushima nuclear cleanup?
Probably.
Oh no, that's TEPCO. Sorry. So this is a totally standard Japanese style gag. I just did that whole. Was it this? Chigaoka. That was actually this different word. And this is exactly why Japanese gags are not funny in English.
That wasn't very funny, was it?
It was not funny at all.
Because no one misheard, right? It's completely implausible that you would have thought that. And it was you that went, oh no, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's the way to approach this. The next time a Japanese co-presenter makes one of those gags to you, you need to treat that as a sincere inquiry. You what? What you mean you went to go shopping in some breadcrumbs, not a department store? You really genuinely heard panko and not pargo? Are you out of your mind?
Just take it as seriously as possible.
Yeah.
So, Ali, do you remember a few episodes back you talked about the pandemic being the chance for people who are already in comfortable situations to become more comfortable at the expense of the people who aren't?
Yes, I don't just remember it, I remember it fondly.
Yeah. So what do you think about that in terms of, convenience stores taking this as the chance to go unmanned?
Well, firstly, I think like the convenience store was only ever convenient for the customer. It was never convenient for the staff. Because if you think about the breadth of what a convenience store worker has to do, right? In the past, these were just shops that sold milk, right? These people have to simultaneously sell items, restock shelves, fry chicken to an internationally high standard,
bake
right?
bread,
bake bread, print off concert tickets, right? Help you with your photocopying, and make drinks sometimes, pour ice cream. Frankly, the fact that we expect the breadth of services from one individual is already to me astonishing. It was never convenient for the staff, was it? It was always ever convenient for us.
Considering now these days most of them are doing it in their second language.
Yeah, right.
They'd
Exactly.
already made the move to hiring a lot more foreign workers because, again, foreign workers are cheaper and more disposable than Japanese workers.
More automation might actually be quite good for these convenience stores, because apparently they've had so much trouble trying to find staff that they've actually been planning to open them, like actually close them at night. So a 7-Eleven would actually be open from 7 to 11 rather than 24 hours. So maybe the automation's a good thing.
In more rural areas and like the farther out reaches, there have been a lot of stores that have gone to shorter hours in Kyushu.
I think it does help having a human there. Like when I think of some of my lowest moments where I've gone at 4 a.m. to buy 3 cheesecake slices, an extra large pasta, which when the guy asks, "Would you like it heated?" and I'll go, "No," and he presumes that I'm taking it home to eat it, but I'm just going to eat it there cold. And beer. Like sometimes you do need a human just to remind you that
to judge you.
Yeah, that you are still living in this planet, and you do owe it something. You do owe it a certain degree of not going back a third time in the same evening.
That's true. Without people at the register giving you disapproving looks, you're never going to get rid of all of the dudes reading all of the magazines next to the bathroom.
Right, exactly. Well, I hope that if they do go fully automated, that they find a way to automate the frying of chicken. I mean, that is obviously what a convenience store is about, right? Like from my perspective, a convenience store is another place to get fried chicken. It's like I kind of see the streets of Japan like Pac-Man sees those streets, and each of those yellow dots is some fried chicken. And and the standard of fried chicken is so good to me. It's not like it's a convenience store. It's like it's a fried chicken shop, and then a shop's just been built around it. That's the lens through which I see convenience stores, and I can't see how they can automate it. But if they were to automate it, presumably they could then commercialize that machine, and you could bring it into your own home.
Greg, just so you know, most of Ollie's time in Japan was very fried chicken focused.
Any tips on how to get fried chicken cheaper?
Dumpsters? I guess I'm not sure.
Any other ideas about how you think kind of the contactless society or the cashless society or the things that have changed because of the pandemic might affect tourism or business in Japan in the future?
I think it's going to be just more of the things like check into hotels. There's going to be more of the the machines rather than having to talk to a person.
Yeah. Do you think that'll make it easier for foreign travelers or not?
Probably not, because most of the Japanese systems are quite. Do you know the robot restaurant? Not the robot restaurant, the robot hotel.
The Henna Hotel? The one where robot dinosaurs check you in. Yeah, I've been to one of those.
Yeah, so the problem with the dinosaurs and the check-in machines is they break down so much that there's always a person just through a door. So like about 1 out of every 2 check-ins, the person kind of runs out and has to kind of do the machine for the person.
Are they at least wearing a dinosaur costume?
No, could be quite confusing, I think. So, they're obviously the dinosaurs are so realistic. You don't want to kind of have someone running out with a costume.
The Bryans will call me out for this one because I'm pretty sure I mentioned it at the time. But when I went to that Henna Hotel, I went with my kids, and I thought it'd be so cool to see those dinosaurs speaking English that I pushed the English option on the screen, and then it said enter your address or enter your passport, and I had my residence card. I didn't have a passport, so I just clicked the button that says I live in Japan, and it instantly went back to Japanese.
I remember the Wi-Fi in Japan being really intrusive. Like sometimes you'd log into public Wi-Fi and they wouldn't just ask you for your name and date of birth. They would ask you your email address for anti-terrorism measures. I remember seeing that specifically in a shopping centre. For anti-terrorism purposes, please provide your email address. And I was thinking, what are they going to do?
And your gender.
Yeah, exactly. Set up a MailChimp to do a mail blast to all of the female terrorists to ask them to stop. This makes no sense at all. In Hakata Station, they ask you for your marital status.
I have never seen one of the ones that ask you for your gender, but at the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter park, I'm sure the Wi-Fi will want to know what sex you are.
Hey, thanks very much for listening to this episode 39 of Japan by River Cruise. As ever, thanks to the Bryans who are paying $4 a month to support the podcast at buymeacoffee.com. They're getting access to the show early and some bonus bits, so thanks to them.
And thanks to Greg for stopping by. It was really nice to talk to him. Ali and I have gotten a lot out of his content at tokyocheapo.com and japancheapo.com. You guys should check it out too. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.